Ladies and gentlemen, Julian announced, his voice booming through the sound system. Thank you for joining us tonight for what should be a historic achievement. But before we celebrate, I have a solemn duty to perform. He pressed a button on the podium, a door at the side of the observation deck opened, and 6 men in dark suits strode in. They were not NASA security. They were not Space Force. They wore the unmistakable insignia of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. These agents are here on behalf of the Department of Justice, Julian said, his voice heavy with rehearsed gravity. They have a warrant for the arrest of my wife, Dr. Alara Vance, on charges of espionage, theft of classified technology, and conspiracy to sell United States defense secrets to a foreign power. The room imploded. Gasps, shouts, the clatter of champagne glasses hitting the floor. I stood frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs as 400 heads swiveled toward me. The lead agent, a tall man with a shaved head and cold eyes, began walking in my direction, his hand resting on the handcuffs clipped to his belt. I discovered this betrayal 3 months ago, Julian continued, his voice cracking with counterfeit emotion. I was devastated. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been stealing from her own country. She sold the ion thruster specifications to a foreign contractor for $12 million. When I confronted her, she threatened to kill herself and take down the company with her. She has been mentally unstable for years, paranoid, delusional, making wild accusations against me and our staff. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Harold Reinhardt, has documented her deteriorating condition. I wanted to protect her. I tried to get her help, but tonight, her crimes have caught up with her, and I must put my country before my heart. Sabine stepped forward, her hand resting on her belly, a belly that, I realized with dawning sickness, was no longer flat. I just want to say that I stand with Julian. He is a patriot and a hero. And I am proud to announce that I am carrying his child. We are building a new family together, and we hope that Alara can find the help she needs. The crowd's shock had turned to horror. Directed at me, I saw General Marcus Chen, a man I had briefed on propulsion systems a dozen times, staring at me with cold contempt. I saw the CEO of Aegis Defense, a woman I had mentored, turning her back, and I saw my career, my reputation, my entire existence dissolving like smoke. The FBI agent reached me. Dr. Vance, you are under arrest. Please place your hands behind your back. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried. Ma'am, don't make this difficult. I'm not making anything difficult. I'm asking you to look at something before you cuff me. I reached slowly into my clutch. The agent tensed, his hand moving to his holster. I pulled out not a weapon, but a slim black tablet. This tablet contains evidence that Julian Ashford, not me, is the one who sold classified technology. I have been cooperating with the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency for the past 8 weeks. The agents who are embedded in this room tonight have been monitoring his communications since I first reported his crimes. They are here now. Julian's face flickered. She's lying. She's delusional. Agent, arrest her. But the lead agent had paused, because from the back of the room, another door had opened, and 3 people were walking through. The first was a woman in the crisp blue uniform of the United States Space Force, a 4-star general, the commander of space operations. The second was a man in a charcoal suit, the director of the DCSA. The third was a silver-haired woman in a black pantsuit, carrying a folder stamped with the seal of the Orion Family Trust, MYANT. Margaret Vance. Stand down, Agent Morrison, the Space Force general said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Dr. Vance is not a spy. She is the chief propulsion designer for the United States Space Force, a position she has held under classified status for the past 6 years. She is also the founder and majority shareholder of the Orion Group, the parent company that owns Orion Propulsion Technologies. And she has been working with our counterintelligence division to expose the real traitor in this room. Julian staggered backward, his face going the color of old bone. No, she's nobody. She's an engineer, She's my wife. She's not. She is the daughter of Adrian Vance, Margaret said, stepping forward. The founder of the Orion Group, the largest private aerospace conglomerate in the world. When my brother died 22 years ago, his shares were placed in a blind trust for Alara. She took control of that trust on her 30th birthday. She owns 70% of Orion Propulsion Technologies, the company you thought you controlled. The patents, the contracts, the satellites, they are hers. And the evidence she has gathered against you, Julian Ashford, is overwhelming. I pressed a button on my tablet. The massive screen behind the stage flickered to life. Documents appeared, encrypted emails between Julian and a known foreign intelligence operative. Wire transfers totaling $14.7 million to a shell account in the Cayman Islands. A signed confession from the psychiatrist Harold Reinhardt, admitting that Julian had paid him $500,000 to fabricate a mental illness diagnosis. And photographs of Julian and Sabine together, dated over the past 4 years, in hotel rooms and restaurants and the apartment Julian had leased under a false name. Julian Ashford, the DCSA director, said, "You are under arrest for espionage, treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud against the United States government. Sabine Moreau, you are under arrest as an accessory to these crimes." Sabine shrieked. "I didn't know about the espionage. Julian told me he was just moving money. He told me she was crazy." "Shut up, Sabine." Julian lunged toward me, but the FBI agents, the real FBI agents, intercepted him, pinning his arms behind his back. "Alara, please, 13 years. I'm your husband. You can't do this to me." I walked toward him, close enough to see the terror in his eyes. "You stood on a stage and called me a traitor. You plotted to send me to prison for the rest of my life. You sold my technology to enemies of the United States, and you think I'm going to save you. I loved you. In the beginning, I really loved you. No! You loved my money. You loved my mind. You loved what I could build for you. But you never loved me. Take him away." They dragged him toward the exit, his shouts fading into the chaotic noise of the room. Sabine stumbled after him, her crimson dress catching on a chair, her face a mask of tears and fury. When the doors closed behind them, the observation deck erupted, not in horror, but in thunderous, cathartic applause. General Chin approached me. "Dr. Vance, on behalf of the United States Space Force, I apologize for what you endured tonight. The Prometheus launch will proceed as scheduled, and it will be dedicated to you." I shook her hand. "Thank you, General. But there's something I need to do first." I walked to the podium and faced the crowd. Prometheus is my life's work, but it is also a symbol of what happens when women refuse to be silenced. For 13 years, I let a man take credit for my genius. I let him stand in my light while I worked in the shadows, and no more. Tonight, this rocket flies under my name. And every rocket that follows will carry the name of the woman who built them. Not just me. All of us, the women who have been erased, diminished, and dismissed. This launch is for them. The crowd rose to its feet. The applause was deafening. And 2 hours later, when Prometheus ignited its engines and rose into the Florida sky on a pillar of fire, I stood at the window with my aunt beside me, watching my creation touch the edge of the universe. The trial of Julian Ashford was the most significant espionage case in a generation. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the wire transfers, the testimony of the psychiatrist, the cooperation of the Foreign Intelligence Service that had been running him as an asset. He was convicted on 17 counts, including treason, and sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Sabine Moreau testified against him and received 15 years. Her child, a daughter, was born in a prison hospital and placed in the care of Sabine's parents. The last I heard, Sabine was working in the prison laundry, writing letters of apology that would never be answered. Orion Propulsion Technologies was rebranded as Vance Propulsion, and the Prometheus launch became the first of a new era in American spaceflight that I was appointed to the National Space Council. I testified before Congress about the importance of protecting intellectual property and supporting women in STEM fields. The Orion Group, under my leadership, expanded into satellite communications, lunar mining, and deep space exploration. Within a decade, it was the most valuable private company in the world. And I found peace, not in a new marriage, not in the trappings of wealth, but in the quiet certainty that I had reclaimed my life. Margaret retired to a house on the coast of Maine, and we spoke every Sunday. My mother's photograph hung in my office, beside the blueprints of the Prometheus engine. Some nights, when the sky was clear, I would drive out to the launch complex and stand in the shadow of the rockets, looking up at the stars that my technology would one day reach. Julian Ashford died in prison 11 years after his conviction. I did not attend his funeral. I was at Cape Canaveral that day, watching the launch of the Artemis, the first crewed mission to Mars, powered by engines that bore my name. The woman they called a traitor had become the architect of humanity's future, and the man who tried to destroy her was nothing but a footnote in the history she wrote. Not because I was lucky, not because I was cruel, but because I had finally learned that the woman they tried to erase was the woman who would build the stars.